Welcome back to the channel. I know all I've done is post my story hero, Fresh Start. However, today, I've decided to post something different. Judging by the title of the video, I doubt I'll have to get into much detail. Here's my top 5 writing tips for new authors, which in other words means things that I do that help me when I'm motivated to write. Motivation is the key when you want to write a good story, which brings us to our first point. Write down all your ideas. I have this small tab on my phone just for ideas, and it helps me when I get writer's block. However, some of the ideas are a little weird, not weird in a bad way, it just doesn't have a lot of detail. Sometimes I'll be looking at my notes and the words turns out as a title with no description. Turns out what? Seriously, younger me? What were you thinking? Turns out I'm an undercover celebrity. Turns out I'm some supernatural being. Turns out I'm vegan. That's why when you write down your ideas, it's a good idea to add some detail, and even though my turns out title doesn't work for me right now, I was able to come up with some examples for it. What I'm trying to say is even if you're not going to use these written down ideas for a full series, you may find yourself wanting to use the specific scene for a book you are working on. A good example would be whenever it rains, have the characters dance at one point since it turns out he has a heart. Outlining. Once you've decided what idea to use and in what genre, I tend to make a rough draft on what's going to happen. Now, I don't do that outline where you use a hill for a diagram from your 4th grade English. No, I'm talking about doing a summary and drafting what I want each chapter to have. Is that a bad habit of mine? Yes and no, it isn't a bad habit because I have an idea of what I want to happen, but it is a bad habit in the sense that I tend to write about 25 to 30 chapters, which isn't a lot considering that a book has around 60,000 words. Start drafting, but don't focus on the words. I don't mean writing gibberish or anything like a Mad Lib. Try to use your description for said chapter and follow through with that scene or goal set for you since it'll help with consistency. You'll find yourself wanting to edit every grammar mistake, and while it is useful to make as little mistakes as possible in the first draft, it won't be the only time you'll be reading the same chapter. Just have fun and write your heart out. Proofread and editing. Remember when I said a couple of seconds that it wasn't going to be the only time you'll be reading the same chapter? Yeah, you're going to have to read everything more than once. You'll want to start with fixing all your grammar mistakes. Just focus word for word before going to the next step.
After you've corrected as much as possible, you're going to edit all those scenes. Add detail on how the character feels. What's the atmosphere and how is that minor object relevant to this point of the story? Trying to make most details memorable helps the reader get a sense of what your writing style is.
After you've edited the details, you're going to reread for more grammar mistakes because you added more information and it's possible to have some mistakes. Now this is the part where some of you decide whether your word count is enough. Personally, I like to set a minimum of 2,000 words per chapter because it makes me feel like there's enough detail for it not to appeal as a short story. But that's just me. It's alright to have a minimum or maximum when writing since it helps you pace yourself. Just remember that if you're going to add or delete information, to reread the entire thing just to make sure it's coherent. Rereading it in the next couple of days. Even though the previous advice was to proofread, it's good to take a break from working on your craft. So once you're done with editing your work, take a break and procrastinate. It's good to take some time to do whatever else you'd like to do or work on another writing piece. Once you've recharged, try rereading and editing the last couple of details. Now, it's possible that the last time you're reading it before uploading or moving to the next chapter isn't perfect. The important thing is you feel confident in your work and you're comfortable with posting or sharing it with people you trust. Which brings me to a bonus advice for you. Ask for advice. Sometimes another person's perspective is something needed to improve your work. Constructive criticism is important, so your craft evolves into the next Hamilton pamphlet. Just make sure that you don't take the critiques as a negative rather than a learning experience. If you'd like me to check out your work and give you some tips on a scene, feel free to DM me on the platforms found on the description box below. Well, that's everything for now. Stay hydrated and I'll see you on the next upload. Bye!